I'm Liz Faublis, and this is Currents. The storm of the century has hit Staten Island very hard. Many are dead there. The residents saying they're not getting the help they need, calling it our Katrina. The crisis of our gas supplies is growing. Now there are guns and police. And into the deep, tonight, Bishop DiMarzio brings comfort and help to those who have lost so much. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Currents Week in Review. In many ways, this horrible storm we call Sandy has been most cruel to Staten Island. Of the 41 people who have died in the city, 19 lived on Staten Island. Some of the worst destruction has been there. Many residents and the borough president are complaining they are being ignored in their plight. Now, the awful news about two young boys, 2 and 4, ripped from their mother by floodwaters, found dead. CNN's Gary Tuckman has more.
A Ford Explorer on the side of a street in Staten Island, New York. The car seats remain, where 2 little boys, Brandon and Connor Moore, were sitting as their mother Glenda was driving during Hurricane Sandy, desperately looking for shelter.
The story of what happened to Glenda and her sons Brandon and Connor is sad, horrifying, terrifying. She was driving her SUV down this street. It plunged into this hole during the height of Hurricane Sandy. She then got out of the vehicle with her 2-year-old son and her 4-year-old son. Remember, it is pouring rain, torrential, the wind's 90 miles per hour, and she comes over here to this tree and holds onto the tree, grabs the branches, grabs the tree, and holds onto it and holds onto her sons at the same time. And she did this, according to police, for hours. That's what she told the police. She then said she went up to this house right behind me, knocked on the door, a man was inside, and pleaded with him, let us inside your house. She says, according to police, the man would not let her in the house with her sons. She then went to the back, stood on the balcony, took a flower pot, tried to break the window to break into the house, wasn't able to, and ultimately floodwaters came through and swept her sons away.
Everyone was wishing for a miracle in the search for the children, but there really wasn't any optimism the boys would be found alive. New York City police used a fan boat to look for them in the nearby marsh. Police divers walked through that swampy marsh. Sadly, the bodies of both children were found not far from each other, about a quarter-mile away from where Glenda last held them. Family members say Glenda is too distraught to talk to us. We wanted to meet the man who lived in the house where police say Glenda sought protection. Nobody answered the door. But while we were standing near the house on public property, an angry man appeared.
You can get the hell out. Stop filming in my house. No cameras here. Stop. Stop!
Sir,
get out!
sir,
Get the hell out!
Can I ask you a question? Did the woman knock on your door to get in?
No, sir. No, sir.
Alan did not want to say his last name, but the house in question is his, and he says he was inside during the hurricane.
The police say that Glenda came with her 2 sons, knocked on your door,
No, sir.
begged to go in during the hurricane.
No, sir. Absolutely not.
So you did not see a woman with 2 children?
No, absolutely not.
So what you told the police is not accurate?
Absolutely. I never saw anybody. I only saw the man.
So you said you saw a man come to your door?
Yes. He didn't come to the door. There's stairs in the back of the house, and he came. He was standing at. He must have been standing at the bottom of the stairs.
And what did he do?
He took a concrete flower pot. I can show you. There's one in the backyard. There were 2 of them. He threw one of them through the door.
Okay, what they're saying is that she, after you didn't let her in, that she tried to break a window and get in. So is it possible you're mistaken?
No, because I had to stay there all night. I sat all night with my back against the door in the kitchen.
Well, let me ask you, the man, if a man threw a flower pot, did you let the man in your house?
He didn't ask to come in. He asked me to come out and help him.
So did you help him?
I couldn't. What could I do to help him?
All right, so
I'm wearing the same clothes. I had these shorts on. This is my brother's jacket. I had a pair of shorts on with flip-flops. And I was going to come out.
But what it comes down to is you're saying you did not see a woman and 2 children.
No, sir.
You saw a man.
A man, yes.
I mean, you must feel terrible for this woman and her 2 children, right?
Yeah, did they find the children? I don't even know.
Yeah, they found them. They found them dead today.
Of course, it's a tragedy. Of course, absolutely. It's unfortunate. She shouldn't have been out, though. You know, it's one of those things. She shouldn't have been on the road.
Well, a lot of people are, though, sir.
Yeah.
And they look for help sometimes.
There's nothing I could do. I'm not a rescue worker. The mayor said, people said, rescue workers don't endanger the lives of rescue workers. If I would have been outside, I would have been dead.
Alan says police have talked to him, and he told them the same story he told us, an upsetting story about a most tragic night.
That was CNN's Gary Tuckman reporting. Many are now calling Staten Island our Katrina, suffering residents ignored by government. The borough president, James Molinaro, is leading the complaints, calling the response by emergency workers to Staten Island an absolute disgrace.
There was no answers for these people.
Right.
Some of these people that came into the shelters, their homes have been destroyed the night before. They had no place to go. Where did they go when they leave the shelter?
Yeah.
I need answers. These people need answers.
It's frustrating that it takes you yelling to
Right.
start to get some answers.
Well, you're not supposed to govern by yelling, but frustration went into anger.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
I was angry, but it seems to have gotten some results.
And after his outburst, Molinaro says FEMA did promise him a better response, and Janet Napolitano, the Secretary of Homeland Security, is set for a visit. But for many of the residents of Staten Island, that just may not be enough.
Do you think you can rebuild?
Not without any funds, no. Without funds, I'll probably have to walk away from my home. I'll probably have to walk away from my home.
This is Cedar Grove Avenue on Staten Island, completely devastated. Look at this house here. Just collapsed, roof completely broke down. There's remnants of a stairwell there that may have gone to an attic. That looks like an attic that you're seeing just slanting down over here. The rest of it is leveled. Remnants over here. And this is kind of a scene repeated throughout Staten Island. People kind of bringing whatever items they can salvage and just strewing them all over their front lawn. The owner told us we could come in and take a look at the damage in his house, and you can kind of get an idea of what the storm surge did when it came through here. The shoreline is that way. The owner says the surge came through here. This is his living room, what's left of it. Came right through here. Look at all the debris. Look at everything that was destroyed. This is the living room area. That whole section looks like a kitchen. Looks like it was washed out there. Debris all over the place. This is a sofa, he says, almost got tossed out the window. And the owner told us that a lot of the debris just came rushing through the house and right out the window here. At this house, they're just trying to get as much stuff out of the house as possible. The homeowner is right over here. She says she doesn't think she can salvage any of this stuff. Again, a scene repeated throughout Staten Island. She says this is her 8-year-old son. They were in here. They rode out the storm together. She says this is the first time he's been out of the house since the storm hit. He's just been so terrified.
The people just got out in time, but we didn't. We got to move our cars. We lost them. We lost 3 cars. We have nothing. I don't know how you bounce back from something like this.
And that was Brian Todd reporting. Now, to help the people bounce back, New York Archbishop Cardinal Timothy Dolan spent much of yesterday on Staten Island, which is part of the Archdiocese of New York. The visit was described as very upbeat, with the cardinal hugging and consoling people. According to the pastor of Holy Rosary Church, the cardinal joked and posed for photos with firefighters, and the people thanked him for coming to Staten Island. Next, the nightmare of gasoline, as our Week in Review coverage of Sandy continues after the break. And welcome back to Currents Week in Review. This Sunday, our diocese is taking up a second collection to help all who are suffering from the storm of the century. And Catholic Charities is saying that people need everything, and the damage from the storm is almost overwhelming. They have set up several ways for you to help. Now, donations may be made online at CatholicCharitiesUSA.org, by phone at 1-800-991-9338, and by mail to P.O. Box 17066, Baltimore, Maryland, zip 21297. Meantime, the shortage of gasoline is a growing problem throughout our area, approaching crisis levels, even disrupting some rescue and emergency services. Lines at pumps on Staten Island lasted well into the night. Police have been called to several stations as disputes became really heated. One driver arrested in Queens after pointing a gun at another on the gas line. The city made a late-night deal with a major supplier so that police, fire, and sanitation can have some fuel. Not so for taxi cabs, though. The TLC is warning that the fleet on the street is shrinking because of no gas supplies. Now, the supply of power remains a big problem for millions, but Con Ed says all of Manhattan should have electricity sometime tomorrow, and Governor Cuomo is promising that when Lower Manhattan gets turned back on, more subway trains will start running. At South Ferry, they are still pumping the water out of the station. Limited train service resumed in parts of the city yesterday. The commute into Manhattan took up to 5 hours, but the rides were free. The man in charge of the MTA's infrastructure took CNN reporter Jason Carroll into the South Ferry station for a better idea of the work going on underground.
What is it exactly that you'll be doing down here? Because this isn't an area clearly where you're working now. I mean, it's
the station complex itself will require a significant rehabilitation due to the damage from the storm, the infrastructure, the electrical systems, the fare collection systems, the lighting systems, the stairways, the ventilation systems, the elevators, the escalators. They're all pretty much ruined from the water damage, from the surge damage. Just follow my same footsteps. Now, believe it or not, these timbers washed in from the ocean or the bay, wherever they came from.
This did right here, this timber right here.
Absolutely.
So this washed in from
all of this debris
somewhere
that you see washed in from the tidal surge.
It's incredible to think that this was a subway station.
Oh,
It doesn't
it's beautiful.
look anything like a subway station now.
One of our newest subway stations.
So were you able? So obviously you were able to pump out a lot of the water from this, from where we are right now, because it's dry.
It's dry to this level, but we'll take a quick look over there at the stairway that goes down to the 1 and 9 terminal station, and you'll see the level of water where it stands today.
I mean, I think this pretty much says it all too.
Right.
When you look at what's left from this over here.
Yeah, this is the finished surface wall with tile surface. You see it washed out from the wall coming down the stairway. So that's the level of water. This is completely flooded all the way down to the platform level and to the tracks, where you would typically go down and get on a train.
So
would be another level down.
Well, come on, we'll go down. We can talk about the water being.
Half the steps are very slippery.
Mm-hmm. So this water here. I mean, this is toxic, correct?
That I could not tell you if it was toxic in any sense.
I mean, it certainly looks.
It's seawater for the most part.
Okay.
You know, the bay rose over the seawall and flooded the station.
But when your guys come down here, I mean, they're just coming down here with the pumps to the level where we are,
right,
putting the pump in the water, and then getting it out.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that if you keep going down, that there are stairs that keep going down.
Absolutely.
25 feet of water down there. Yep. But at one point, the water was up where we're standing here, because you can tell where the steps are rusted.
Yes, at this very level, the water was about. We've pumped down about 15 feet so far.
Okay, so you've pumped 15 feet out. So 15 feet you've already pumped. Wow. Okay. And a lot more to go. And 25 feet down of water, additional water.
Additional water still lies in place.
When do you think this particular subway station will be up and fully running again?
I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't tell you. I don't have the skills or expertise to really estimate it.
If you had to guess?
I would say months.
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 And now pumping the water out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel is taking days with no promise of when it will be dry. Now, Governor Cuomo was in there yesterday. He found only a quarter mile of the tunnel dry. More than a mile has water up to the ceiling. The tunnel runs between Brooklyn and Manhattan. It was recently renamed the Hugh Carey Tunnel in honor of the late former governor. No estimate when the water will be gone. Now, we are not going anywhere. Currents Week in Review will continue after the break. Help is on the way to Breezy Point. Bishop DiMarzio is bringing his special comfort, and a big donation is being made. Next. Welcome back. Today is All Souls Day, and as you might imagine, especially poignant this year. In remembrance of all the souls of the faithfully departed, field masses are celebrated at each of the diocesan cemeteries in Brooklyn and Queens. Bishop DiMarzio was the celebrant at Holy Cross in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Yesterday, he spent much of the day consoling the residents of Breezy Point and Queens. 111 homes were damaged there in a fire whipped by the winds of Sandy. The neighborhood is said to be the most Irish in America, and now the American Irish Fund is announcing that $100,000 is being donated to help the people there. The fact that Breezy Point is a seaside community did not help during the storm. Seawater inundated the streets, hampering firefighters in their battle. Another famous seaside community along the Jersey Shore also suffered greatly in the storm. CNN's Michael Holmes reports.
Of all the damage wrought by Sandy, these images are among those that stand out the most for so many Americans. Take a look at the before and then the heartbreaking after. This is the Casino Pier and Amusement Park in Seaside Heights on New Jersey's Barrier Islands, 3/4 of a century old, now in ruins. To television viewers who watch The Sopranos or perhaps MTV's The Jersey Shore or listen to Bruce Springsteen sing of this place, there might be a sense of familiarity about it. But for millions of Americans, generations of them, this is a deeply personal loss.
That pier is the lifeblood of Seaside Heights. That pier was beautiful. It had great rides. Every one of you people probably, or half you people here have been on that pier.
For many, this place is summer memories, a place their parents brought them and where they brought their own kids. Until now, until this. Harry Smith is a councilman and business owner. His family ran the beach umbrella concession. It's gone now.
I mean, this is heartbreaking. I've lived here my whole life. I'm like a fourth generation here. And like I said, this hole is devastating.
The best known and most dramatic image, perhaps, the Star Jet roller coaster. It sat on the pier that used to run 300 yards out to sea, along with 36 other famed rides and attractions. This, for example, was the Scrambler. Less than a mile away, Funtown Pier, where we find business owner Bob Stewart, standing where his office used to be.
I've never seen anything like it, you know. This building right here where we're standing, I have pictures of this from the 1890 or something, and it was the only building here. Everything else was gone, and it was stood every storm up till now, you know, and it's completely gone now.
Bob says he's already getting calls from regular vacationers.
They're going to miss this place, you know. This is, like you said, they spent their summers here since they were this big, you know.
The crushing damage done here all too clear. The Ferris wheel, incredibly, upright, although the pier it sat on is gone. Other rides unrecognizable. The sheer force of the water clear to see from the debris, but it's pylons like this that have stood here for decades that really tell the story. Snapped off and shredded. The famed New Jersey boardwalk, 16 blocks of it, has either been turned into kindling or is buckled or undermined. It all needs replacing. Places like this are more than just pylons and planking and metal, though, more than just a beach. This has been a constant part of life and family history for those who come year after year. They say it will be rebuilt, but it'll never be the same.
CNN's Michael Holmes. A Mass of Hope is being celebrated Monday evening for all in our diocese who suffered in the storm. Bishop Raymond Chapetto will be the main celebrant at Holy Name of Jesus Church at 245 Prospect Park West at 7:30 p.m. Donations will be accepted and very, very welcome. We have looked at Sandy in many different ways, on the ground, from the air, even underneath our streets. Now, we hear from one man who experienced the storm on the open sea aboard a ship.
There's a brand new Disney ship, the Disney Fantasy.
But Dr. David Evans of Germantown says this 7-day cruise became a nightmare, and he documented the ordeal on his cell phone.
The ship began to list from left to right so dramatically and so quickly that all of the furniture that was in our room turned over. Everything that was breakable that wasn't attached broke.
Passengers were made aware of Hurricane Sandy's proximity during the Caribbean cruise off the coast of Miami, but they were later told by the captain, Evans says,
just stay in your cabins.
The storm was far worse than previously predicted.
So the water pretty much should be still.
From the swimming pool to a devastated gift shop, Evans toured the ship with his cell phone as it was tossed about.
The sliding doors to our bedroom began to suddenly slam.
At one point, Evans says his wife actually feared for their lives.
Never expected that my wife would be crying in the middle of the night saying, we got to call our boys, you know.
Evans believes it may have been much more terrifying for families with small children aboard, all of whom were no doubt happy to return safely to port, like he and his wife.
Jason Miles reporting. We will continue with Currents Week in Review after this break. Into the Deep with Bishop DiMarzio. Tonight, he talks about Sandy and what we all can do to help. Next. Welcome back. Our Week in Review has focused on Hurricane Sandy, as is appropriate for the storm of the century. So too for Bishop DiMarzio and this edition of Into the Deep.
Bishop, thanks for being with us. This has been a week like no other week in New York City, and I know you were down to view some of the destruction in Breezy Point and the Rockaways yesterday. What did you see?
Well, it's a scene of disaster. You know, I've been in a few disasters. I was in the earthquake in Haiti, and before that in Italy, and the earthquake in 1980. And when you see massive destruction, it's you know, it makes an impression on you. Obviously, more importantly, it's not just the building; it's people. As you see people in tears and terror, unsure of the future. That's really the tragic story behind what you see.
What were the people saying to you? I saw that you were speaking with some people there.
Well, first of all, people are very happy to see someone that comes and shares with them. It's all you can say. I'm praying with you, I'm with you, we'll do what we can, and that remains to be seen what we can do. But, you know, I guess people are a bit confused. You know, how does this happen? I think they recognize it has happened at least, and 2 days later, and yet now they got to figure out where do we go from here? What do we rebuild? Do we move? Do we stay here? There's no electricity. There's no the necessities of life are not there. Do they go someplace else? There were those who initially did not want to move, and now they are moving. They realize they can't stay there for any long period of time. So.
And Breezy Point is a predominantly Catholic neighborhood. It's basically the people of Blessed Trinity Parish there. How about the church buildings? There are 3 buildings there in Breezy Point.
Well, there's 2 church. Well, 3 actually, if you count St. Genevieve's. All the buildings are intact. They're standing. There's water. There was water in all of the buildings. The rectory had about 3 feet of water in it. It's all receded. The church had water in it. The other church, they all had water. All the churches in the Rockaways. There's nobody escaped except Star of the Sea, which is on a hill, so the water didn't get up there. But all of them have water damage and water, and some of them don't have basements. So it's crawl space down there. It's low ground, so you don't really have basements. So they're gonna have to clean up. They're gonna have to get the rugs, if there's rugs, out, and let the place air out so it can be used again for mass. We have to relieve them of the obligation, certainly this Sunday, of anybody in those areas that can't get to mass. They certainly are relieved of the obligation. Well, and I saw, you know, I went visited each place and found the priest in most places. Monsignor Spengler is out there, and not that well, but he's out there pushing a snowplow, trying to clean up the area around the church with all the debris that was there. It's hard to describe in one sentence. You know, again, this kind of massive debris. It looks like a tsunami. What we saw after the tsunami, everything's in sticks and all this boardwalks and, you know, torn apart.
I know you visited a convent. Maybe it was in St. Francis de Sales.
St. Francis de Sales, the 3 sisters. The principal was there with 2 other nuns, and they were not leaving for love or money. We tried to convince them to come out, and they had no electricity. They were trying to cook all the food they had in the freezer so it wouldn't go to waste. And it's just their whole intent was, we have to get over to school to clean it so we can start school again. You know? And by themselves, I don't know what they could do, but, you know, amazing dedication and stick-to-itiveness is part of our tradition here, I think.
Sure. And on Coney Island, Catholic Charities has a nursing home there, St. Joachim and Ann. You stopped by there. What was that like?
I did. Well, Joachim and Ann was out of power. They had generators, but unfortunately the generators were flooded out. And actually it was reported today they did get a generator from FEMA, I guess, or whoever supplied it. So they're able to stay in there. The residents were, you know, satisfied. They were getting
food, cold food, nothing could be cooked. But now I think with the power, at least they get some heat back in there and can cook some hot meals for them.
Yeah. What can we as a diocese do to respond?
Well, we're trying to set up some emergency assistance through Catholic Charities. There is a disaster plan that they had in effect. I have a meeting in just an hour or so that we will see what we can do to activate that disaster plan, setting up feeding sites, food pantries. That's another thing. We are going to need food for these areas. The food pantries mostly were in basements. They're all flooded out. So we're going to have to reactivate. The people are really desperate to get the necessities. I spoke today to Joe Bruno, who had emergency assistance for the city. They're opening 15 sites on the peninsula, food feeding sites, so people will have an opportunity to get hot food. And also they're going to open up disaster assistance units where people can go looking for help, the help they need. We will supplement that any way we need. I offered our facilities to the city so that we're there. We have the facilities right in the affected area, so we're trying to cooperate as best we can.
And parishes will be taking a special collection?
Yes, this Sunday or whenever they can. Obviously, we'll take the collection. Normally, Catholic Charities USA in these kind of disasters ask for a national collection.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's going to be done, but that would bring some other influx of emergency assistance or things that normal insurance won't pay for, things that people need. We're going to put a special program in for tuition assistance to families that have lost their homes so the children can stay in school. Just in this day,
Sure.
you can't think of everything, but we're trying to figure out what's necessary. It's something akin to 9/11 in many ways, so we've got to do the same kind of things that were done then, now, because this tragedy affects even many more people in the city.
Great. Thanks, Bishop, for bringing us up to date.
You're welcome. Okay.
Well, as we've been reporting and as many of you have experienced firsthand, the destruction left in Sandy's wake is nothing short of heartbreaking. It's difficult to watch, and believe me when I tell you, it is difficult to report. What makes this tragedy even more distressing is some of our own here at NET and Currents were directly impacted by this storm. Their lives have been upended as they still struggle to recover and survive loss of power, property, personal possessions, some with family in very fragile health. We here at NET extend our deepest, most heartfelt prayers to everyone who must now bear this unspeakable burden, and send a special note of love and support to members of our staff who I say sincerely are like family to us. We pray that God watches over you, and know we are here for you always. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Fablis. Thank you for your prayers, for your support, and of course for watching. Have a good night.